7. Today we're going to be talking about the 3 main different types of brake types you can get. So we're going to go through them each one by one, and I'll tell you the main distinctive properties about them. And then so they're not the most common. In fact, you would rarely see them on a road bike. You're more likely to see them on a hybrid or a mountain bike. So you have the brake lever, then you have the cable coming out of it, and then it goes down through the stem of the bike, the handlebar stem, comes straight down, and then it splits into 2 cables. Now, it splits into 2 cables, and then each cable goes to each of the calipers. So now the brake pads that you'd have on these, they'd be short brake pads. You wouldn't want the long ones because they'd be too long. And also the way they connect is very different. So instead of washers and all of that, you have a bolt that the brake pad goes through, and then that holds it into place. And in order to adjust the angling of the brake pad, you would use an Allen key to adjust to where it's positioned in the actual caliper. Now that's a lot easier because it saves you from dropping washers. It saves you from, it's a lot simpler to adjust because it's one little thing there to change, really. You don't have lots of little bits falling apart, falling all over the gaff. So those are cantilevers. Now caliper brakes is just one solid brake pad, one solid caliper. It's divided into 2 little moving parts. So you have the left side and the right side. And then you have this little lock here, as well as this adjuster up here. So this would adjust the right side, and this would adjust the left side. So in order to adjust them, this side here, the left side, you'd use an Allen key, loosen the bolt, and then you can feed more or less cable through the caliper. And that will adjust how far these 2 little arms here, this would adjust how close these 2 arms are, which will adjust this left side. Now to adjust the right side, you use this little adjuster up here. You can then make sure that you have the 2 brake pads evenly away from either side of the brake pad, of the wheel. The difference between this one and the last one and the one we're going to show you next is that they don't have balancing screws. Now, balancing screws are useful in order to push one side further away if the wheel's a little bit buckled. Now, the difference on this one is that this is essentially the balancing screw. So here we have V-brakes. Now V-brakes are probably the most common brakes you'd get on a bike. You'll find that with V-brakes, so with the balancing screws, tighten it, that will push the brake pad further away from the wheel. Loosen it, that will pull the brake pad closer to the wheel. So now that's, as I was saying before, that's usually if, say for example, your wheel's a little bit buckled and you've got fresh brake pads on there and it keeps touching every time the wheel spins, you just relieve the tension, you just relieve a bit of space on the brake pad to the wheel. Distinctive factor about these type of brake pads are the washers that you get on them. So now, it's very important that you get the order of them right, because by getting them wrong, it means that the brake pads, depending on how you order it, you either won't be able to adjust them as well, or they'll wear down like an awkward angle, and that's not ideal either. So I'm going to show you the way to arrange your washers so that you don't have that problem. So you want to start with the biggest washer at the bottom, and then you want to put in one of these cone shaped washers. So you notice one side, it's kind of like a bowl with a hole in the bottom. So one side that's slightly rounded, this side here, you want to put it that side down into the little ditch that you see in the first washer, like that. and that allows the caliper to move on that side so it can rotate when you're adjusting it. Then you have your caliper. So you put it through the caliper like that, and you've got the first side of it sorted. See, look, if you notice, you can slightly rotate it to get it into the right position that you need it in. Then for the other side, so now you start in reverse. So you put the same one that you ended with on the last side, start with that one, and then you'd get a slightly thinner washer with a little kind of like a cup, and then you put that one on, and then you get this really thin one, stick that on the back, that's just a spacer, and then the final one is the lock nut. So that's this, the bit that goes on the end, and you just screw that on. And now you are able to adjust the angling of the brake pad and prevent it from wearing out uneven. So there we've got it into a position, and now say if I need to, say the wheel is a bit lower down, we can just turn that down, pull it up, left, right, depending on what we need.